Guys, I found something. It's a YouTube channel called After Skool with a K, and yeah, we'll talk about that. They have over 1 million subscribers, and they regularly get over 1 million views, so frankly, I'm kinda surprised I've never heard anyone talk about it. As the name suggests, After Skool is ostensibly an educational channel that has videos on a wide variety of topics. They bear something of a resemblance to the School of Life, which is a channel that is notoriously hit or miss with regards to accuracy in the topics they cover. The video on Marx was actually not bad, if I remember correctly. But After Skool is different. There's something a little weirder and more insidious going on here. So grab whatever bong you use to smoke salvia out of, and believe me, you'll need it, and join me on a journey to expand our collective consciousness into the fifth dimension. So, if I'm going to put this channel on blast, as the kids say, the kids probably don't say that anymore, do they? You may be asking what exactly they do. Well, a vast majority of their videos are less than 10 minutes and consist of narration with this time-lapse whiteboard animation. It's a nice gimmick. It's a pretty cool aesthetic. The narration comes in one of two flavors, either a script read by the in-house narrator, or it'll be a piece of a talk that someone else has given. These people include Alan Watts, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and one time just the JFK "We choose to go to the moon" speech. A lot of it does seem pretty innocuous on the surface. Their most popular video is about why practically no countries have purple flags, and they have one about what happens when you drink seawater, and one about how we're in the middle of the sixth mass extinction. These videos are fine. Good, even. But the more you dive in, the more you find ideology. Now, this can be as small as what they did in their video on wealth inequality, where they implied that the 50s were some idyllic time where nearly everyone was middle class, which is a pretty ahistorical start to an otherwise okay video. But it can be as bad as their video, "Are You an Alpha?", which is a clip from a talk by motivational speaker Simon Sinek. Sinek? I don't care. That uses, you guessed it, biological determinism and soft eugenics to argue for the natural existence of hierarchies. He also talks about women as though they are commodities in a sexual marketplace. Big yikes.
No one has a problem that your boss makes more money than you. You might think he's an ass, but you don't have a problem that he makes more money. Nobody has a problem that somebody who outranks us at work has a bigger office than us. Doesn't offend us.
Excuse me, it offends me, and it offends everyone who spends their entire working life flinging out burgers for minimum wage as fast as humanly possible while their boss sits in a locked office reading emails. And this sort of motivational speaker self-help stuff permeates damn near everything the channel does. When they clip Joe Rogan, it's about motivating yourself to exercise. When they clip Stephen Hawking, it's about taking advantage of the time that you have. And don't ya just know they did a Jordan Peterson video? 2, in fact. And for the most part, this sort of self-help stuff is not necessarily bad advice. I mean, it turns out exercise is in fact good for you. You know, if you're feeling shitty and your room is a mess, cleaning your room might make you feel a little better. And, you know, keeping it clean is pretty good too, I guess. But Jordan Peterson doesn't tell you to clean your room because it's the secret to feeling awesome. He does it to condition you into always looking within to solve your problems and to never question the system and what role it may have in said problems. If you're not getting paid enough in your job, it's not because capitalists are incentivized to pay you as little as humanly possible. It's because you don't stand up straight with your shoulders back and have the brass bollocks to demand a raise. And After Skool does this too, because despite this stuff being generally good advice on its own, when taken together, it paints a picture of the world where even if the problems are systemic, the solutions can only be individual. For example, in the aforementioned video on the sixth mass extinction, they do exactly this. They talk about the Industrial Revolution and the Pacific Garbage Patch, carpet emissions, you know, Things that were not the results of any one individual's actions. Systems had to be built in order to make it this way. But unsurprisingly, when it comes time to present solutions, the question is, what can you do? And the answers are eat less meat, recycle, and grow a garden. And again, good things to do, but not solutions to the problem. And they have videos that obscure the systemic causes of problems altogether. In their video, Why Bad Habits Feel So Good, they talk about the happy reward hormone dopamine and how we're sort of hardwired to seek it out and develop behaviors around this. And while the video itself has no sources, this isn't wrong. Do you need a source? I found one. It took me all of 0.38 seconds. Total lack of research aside, the real problem lies in their framing. The world simply is how it is, and all of these bad habits, such as drinking, overusing social media, and eating shitty food, simply occur naturally. And in order to overcome them, we have to fight that urge to seek out comfort and make ourselves deliberately uncomfortable. And for one final time, this is not necessarily bad advice, though it's not all purpose. It is deeply unhelpful in a number of ways. The issue is that there is no mention about how social media companies design their apps in such a way as to abuse that dopamine system very much on purpose. Nothing about how other industries such as free-to-play gaming, gambling, and alcohol are structured very similarly, if not identically, in order to create addicts. Not a peep about how creating cheap, processed, addictive food and placing it strategically in grocery stores makes the industry the most money. They do not bother with the why of how society as a whole has these issues and what sorts of incentives are built into the economic system, because the solutions can only lie within. And this injection of ideology by After School in particular is made very blatant by the animation, those whiteboard drawings that provide the channel its unique aesthetic. It's through this that we see how the channel views certain things. For example, they have a very, very noticeable tendency to draw working class people as overweight, slack-jawed slobs staring at their phones or their TVs. School is always depicted as a machine that sucks out creativity from children. Success is depicted as being physically attractive and wealthy. There's even a couple of Illuminati pyramids thrown in. You know, for fun. And can we please talk about this drawing of Will Smith? Bruh. And this oft-repeated imagery is used to contextualize the narration, especially when that narration is done by someone who is unaffiliated with the channel, in order to steer the viewer into viewing the world the way After School does. And it's a worldview that, at least on the surface, seems to oppose the corporate oligarchy, care about the future of the planet and humanity, and seek to empower the little guy. But in actuality, it only reinforces ruling class ideology by presenting societal problems as the result of individual failings and the only solutions to those problems as being individual. The system can be criticized or mocked, but its existence isn't questioned. The onus is on us to overcome the system by sheer willpower alone. Even in the About tab on their channel, it says, "We cannot change the world, but we can change ourselves. And that will change the world." No, it won't. At this point, you may be wondering why I felt the need to make this video. This is all kind of boilerplate liberal thinking, and you're right. I did kind of bury the lead a little bit. So this is the first video from After School that I ever saw, and to this day, it is the strangest recommendation that YouTube has ever given me. And this is where shit starts to get weird. But let's wind the clock back a little bit. After School has always dabbled in a little bit of woo, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Some of their early videos were guided meditations. They've incorporated some sacred geometry and chakra diagrams and other spiritualist imagery into their animations over time. But after a while, the woo started to get more woo. They began to talk quite a bit about psychedelics, which is cool. Nothing wrong with that. They did a video about the stoned ape hypothesis, that being the idea that consumption of hallucinogens by our early ancestors helped boost our intelligence and our imaginations. It's an interesting, if totally unprovable idea, and the video only engages in a little bit of mushrooms might be intelligent and maybe we can communicate with them nonsense. They did an unsourced video on the potential therapeutic uses of psilocybin mushrooms, which is true, and again, here's a source. This one took 0.54 seconds. Then they did this video, War on Drugs or a War on the Mind. You might notice that this one is significantly longer than their other videos, and there is a reason for that. Let's watch to find out.
Welcome to a very special episode of After School. On After School, our goal is to bring you life-changing ideas that you won't hear in a classroom. In school, they don't teach you about psychedelic plants, the nature of consciousness, how to have healthy relationships, and so many other important ideas. Instead, school puts students in a rigid system that emphasizes things like spelling, something that never made much sense to us, which is exactly why we spelled school with a K. There are so many profound ideas that traditional school refuses to teach. We wanted to create a place for curious minds who have a thirst for knowledge and want insight into life's deepest mysteries. Aristotle once said, "It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain an idea without accepting it." This means that we actively seek out ideas that push the limits of our understanding. Ideas that counteract the mainstream lies we've been force-fed our whole lives. And so, we are proud to announce an exciting new partnership with Gaia.
Oh, no. For those of you who don't know what Gaia is, I think the best way to describe it is Netflix, but for flat earthers. Gaia is a streaming service that's like CuriosityStream, except instead of having the goal of presenting the kind of content you used to see on the Discovery, History, and Learning channels, they have the opposite goal of presenting the kind of Ancient Aliens, Illuminati, Nostradamus bullshit content that those channels always produced, but started producing en masse once they went to shit. But this video isn't about Gaia, it's about After School. From this point forward, the channel did two things. It swan-dived into pseudoscientific woo, and it grew quite a lot, having subs and views sort of plateau before this moment. They lied and said we don't know how or why the pyramids of Giza were built. They did the aforementioned Antarctic civilization video, and they also did some other stuff. But I think the War on Drugs or War on the Mind video really demonstrates what I find insidious about this stuff. And it's not just the peddling of pseudoscience and unscience. If you watch the video, which is really just an episode of a Gaia program and not the standard format, you'll notice two things. The first is that a lot of old white hippies do a lot of pontificating about indigenous cultures and their use of psychedelic substances. Apparently, they didn't think it was important to actually ask any indigenous people to speak on the subject. The second is that they talk about the war on drugs for about 5 fucking seconds before moving on to spend the remainder of the video to talk about how tripping balls will all connect us to Mother Earth. And those two glaring holes in this video go hand in hand, because had they bothered to speak to a single brown person, they could have told us all that the war on drugs has less to do with keeping our third eye closed and a lot more to do with crushing any potential revolutionary sentiments. Making these substances legal and applying the laws unevenly allowed them to essentially jail whoever they wanted, which helped them curb the growing American Indian movement, the Black Panthers, and let's not forget all those college students who are getting high and reading Marx. And how do we know this? Because they told us. In 1994, former Nixon aide John Ehrlichman said, "You want to know what this was really about? The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and the blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did." The drug war is not a war on expanding our consciousness. It is a preemptive strike against any movement that challenges ruling class power. And fuck you for obfuscating that. Before I move on, let's talk about the elephant in the room. This channel is so clearly aimed at kids. Everything about it, from the animation style to the average video length to the way the narrator talks, bears this out. In fact, the channel even published a book based on their most popular video, Why Don't Country Flags Use the Color Purple?, the age range for which Amazon lists as between 2 and 12 years. And the name After School, spelled with a K, is 100% designed to convince parents that the channel is educational, while also drawing in kids with a obviously silly misspelling, like the backwards R in Toys R Us. May my childhood rest in peace. I don't know, nor do I know how to check if the channel is specifically for people under 18. I don't know if they're complying with the COPPA rules, etc. And I don't care. Frankly, their intent is perfectly clear. Okay, so that's what After School does. Make bite-sized videos that peddle neoliberal, pseudo-hippie, Silicon Valley self-help bullshit to children. Now, who the fuck is doing this?
Who can it be knocking at my door? Go away, don't come round here no more.
So, I have to admit that when I first came across After School, I got the wrong impression. When I found the channel, I showed it to some comrades, and I called it PragerU meets Ancient Aliens, which may have been a bit of an overreaction. See, when I came across their videos and got the stink of ideology, I assumed that they were some nefarious, deliberate, pseudo-fascist organization backed by some wealthy asshole or something. But as far as I can tell, that's not true. I figured that I should start by trying to nail down who exactly does the work on these videos. Their YouTube channel and Facebook page don't credit anyone specifically that I could see, which was definitely something that made me suspicious, but they do have a website. And on that website it lists 3 people as collaborators: Mark Woods, the animator, Aristotle, and Cleveland Hughes. Hey guys, Future Quinn here. 2 important things to note about the future. 1, we still have to stay inside, and that sucks. 2, you'll notice that, the things I'm saying about the webpage aren't what you're seeing on the webpage. They updated it while I was editing it before I got screen grabs. So, if you could do me a solid and just pretend like all of my clever jokes about Aristotle being a content creator are funny, because I swear to God they had Aristotle listed as a content creator on this webpage, and it was genuinely funny. So if you could just accept that and just trust me, guys, just trust me. Also, Mark Woods is now Mark W. So I don't know, it's tiny, but it's worth mentioning, I guess. Now, Cleveland Hughes is listed as a content creator, but I really don't know what he does for After School. His day job is a boxing trainer, and his Facebook page lists nothing about After School. His only apparent connection there is that he's friends with a Mark Wooding, which is another name for animator Mark Woods, and he once shared a video posted on the After School Facebook page of Mark going on vacation. He does also have a tiny little YouTube channel, and judging from that, I don't think he's the narrator, nor do I think he edits the After School videos. It's possible he writes the scripts, but he doesn't seem to believe the sorts of things that After School talks about. He might, I guess. In all likelihood, Cleveland has nothing to do with After School, at least not in any major way. Next, we have Aristotle, who was an ancient Greek philosopher who was famous for being wrong about everything and inspiring the worst quote-unquote philosopher of the 20th century. So I highly doubt he's contributing to this channel. So instead of Aristotle, it looks like we've got this guy, Mike S., who handles the social media stuff. He seems like a new hire. Like I said, I checked the webpage pretty recently. They just changed this. So I doubt he's like super involved in the project. It seems to me like he basically just promotes the videos on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that Cleveland and Aristotle were included because having 3 people in the collaborators section looks way more legit than having 1, and Aristotle is yet another alias for Mark Wooding, because as far as I can tell, he does all of this. So I'd also like to acknowledge that my assumption that Cleveland Hughes is really not super involved in the channel is maybe inaccurate, because, since they updated the website and he's still on there, if he were just mildly involved in the channel early on and they just kind of left him up on the webpage and nobody really gave a shit about it, then it would make sense for him to just sort of still be there and not involved. But if they just changed it and he's still there, that indicates that I might have been a little mistaken about his lack of involvement. His involvement is not very public, though. That is clear, because I could really find practically no evidence of him actively being involved in it. So my point, I think, still stands that this is very clearly Mark Wooding's project. It's his baby, and the others are, to whatever degree they are involved, are along for the ride. The videos may speak of the channel as we, but when Mark went on to the podcast Red Pill Initiation Hour, and no, it's not that kind of Red Pill Initiation Hour, it's a whole other misinterpretation of that scene in The Matrix, he very much spoke of the work in terms of I and me, and only spoke about it as a group effort in reference to a video that was a collaboration with another animator. Perhaps he does outsource the video editing, has someone else edit or write the scripts, and perhaps that narrator actually is Aristotle and not just Mark putting on a narrator voice. But regardless of that, this is very clearly Mark's project. So, who is Mark Wooding? Mark was, and still is to some extent, a freelance animator, and some of his stuff is pretty cool. He started After School in 2016, after he did some animation work for the Trump campaign. That project did not go well, according to him, as he put in a lot of work and didn't get paid. Imagine my shock. After this setback and the breakup of a long-term relationship, he decided to knuckle down and create a YouTube channel and make videos about all the ideas he had kicking around in his head. And his channel did really well. He hit 100,000 subscribers in the first year, and he's currently sitting at about 1.2 million. And that makes sense. His videos are accessible, concise, consistent, and they have a unique aesthetic. By all appearances, this is just the very successful passion project of one man. And you know what? I would wish him well if he weren't peddling techno-hippie conspiracy theories to kids. I mean, frankly, he seems like a pretty fun guy to do mushrooms and talk philosophy with. Fun guy. As best I can tell, he's not backed by some super weird billionaire, and his partnership with Gaia came after he started delving into pseudoscience, though, of course, obviously, the folks at Gaia do have some influence over him. It would be silly to think otherwise. This guy is just reinforcing ruling class ideology, sending people down conspiracy rabbit holes, and asserting that we can't change the world at a time when we desperately need to, all on his own. And that kind of baffled me. I kept going back over and over again to look and see if I missed something, but I kept coming up empty-handed. And the fact that someone can get this kind of reach and peddle this kind of stuff without any institutional backing, it concerns me. Let's compare After School to the channel I originally compared them to, PragerU. Now, before I start this, I want to come out and say that with PragerU, there is a level of malevolence that I do not think is present in After School. The assholes at PragerU know that they are lying to you and that they are peddling pseudo-fascist garbage, but I think Mark Wooding just believes he's keeping an open mind. That's why boiling After School down to PragerU meets Ancient Aliens was probably a little unfair on my part, but how do they compare? Well, for starters, they both appear to be something they are not, that being strictly educational, when they are in fact deeply and overtly ideological. This grants them an air of legitimacy, and it's also the reason why Mark pretends that After School isn't just some random guy's YouTube channel. They both spread the narrative that systemic problems either don't exist, are perfectly natural, or can only be overcome individually, and they do this with bite-sized, easy-to-digest videos. They both engage in anti-scientific thinking, and while one is doing this at the behest of oil tycoons, they both largely have the same effect, especially since Mark is telling people to grow a fucking garden in response to a climate catastrophe that could end civilization as we know it. They both engage in conspiracy theories, which has become more and more of a problem in the last few years, and while one may be about cultural Marxism, and the other may be about how the pyramids are limitless sources of energy or something, conspiratorial thinking tends to send people down rabbit holes that end up at the Jewish question, and don't think I've forgotten about Mark's repeated use of Illuminati pyramids. And while After School may only have half as many subs as PragerU, their rate of growth has gone up since the COVID-19 lockdown, while PragerU's has gone down, and After School frequently dwarfs them as far as view counts. So why did I make a video about After School? Well, I mean, for starters, the channel is weird as hell, and acts as though if we all trip balls and become entrepreneurs, we'll end up in some sort of techno-hippie utopia. Believe me, I've tripped many a ball. It don't change shit. But for seconders here on the left, we make video after video after video debunking and mocking PragerU, Red Ice TV, Liberty Hangout. That's good. We should keep doing that. But it's also easy. They're obviously the bad guys. Their ill will is plain to see. But the system isn't constructed of bad guys. There are many channels that are adjacent to them in one way or another that aren't good guys or bad guys. They're just guys. And I think we have a bit of a blind spot when it comes to channels like After School and School of Life and Charisma on Command that may not be deliberate right-wing propaganda farms, but peddle some pretty dangerous bullshit all the same and frequently reinforce the same ideology, and we just don't talk about it. So let me know if you like this. Maybe I'll break down some other pseudo-educational channels in the future. Or maybe if you found one in the wild, you could send it my way. These people are my patrons. They are awesome, and I have no idea why they support me. I want to give an extra special thanks to Questing Refuge, my one $5 and above patron.
Hi, Future Quinn. I'm back again. Monkey Revolution is also a $5 and above patron now, so thank you, Monkey Revolution.
If you want to join them, there's a link down in the thing. Alright, I'm gonna go water the plants before they shrivel up and die. Stay safe, stay radical, and keep your third eye open, comrades. Cheers.
Look at it,